Kati. Many thanks, Kati. Many thanks for having me. Congratulations on the Impact Club initiative. Again, my name is Simon. I am co-founder and steward owner of Container. I studied political science and economics at the University of Zurich. After finishing my studies, I started my own business in medical technology together with two colleagues. We developed therapeutic devices for people suffering from walking disorders such as stroke, multiple sclerosis, or Parkinson's disease. And we built this company up to become the market leader in the German-speaking countries. Later on, we sold it to a competitor in 2016. About a year later, I joined my co-founder, Tobias Jos, who was already working on Container. In order to conclude this is a picture of our medical device. It's business-wise a whole different story than Container, but above all, it was still aimed at social impact by bringing people back on their feet. Now, as requested, today I will mainly focus on the aspects of financing a purpose-driven business. I will start with a quick introduction to Container's mission before moving on to our financing journey, including an overview of the concept of steward ownership. I will conclude with some quite personal takes in order to launch the discussion. So what is Container all about? Our mission is to enable a socially and ecologically sustainable food system. And if you ask yourself, why is this a thing, we might have to take a look at how food is produced today. The supermarkets are filled with food that is understood to be a tradable commodity, a commodity that is basically available all around the clock. This is for a major achievement of modern civilization, but it comes with a hefty price tag, especially if we're taking a close look at the social and ecological footprint of industrial agriculture. It has become one of the primary drivers of greenhouse gas emissions and also biodiversity loss. There's good news. There are farmers out there who know how to grow food without destroying our planet. They apply regenerative farming practices like circular agriculture or food forests. Their products are not standardized, and their production, at least for the time being, is less scalable than industrial farming methods.
Simon.
As a consequence, you won't find their products in the supermarket shelf, even though they taste way better than their industrial counterparts. Now, Container is mainly a sales organization that does a lot of storytelling.
Sorry to interrupt you a
Yeah.
second. I wonder,
Sure.
For the last minute, the audio has gone back and forth a little bit.
Okay.
I don't know if there's.
Sorry.
Yeah, now I can hear you well, but.
Okay, I try to move it a little bit closer. Sorry, I can also use a headset if it stays that way. Maybe, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, as I said, is it better now?
It is better, thank you.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. A sales organization, we are a sales organization that is mainly doing storytelling, social media marketing, community building, and we also run an online platform where the products of these progressive farmers are sold directly to Swiss customers. In the past 5 years, since our inception, we delivered more than 50,000 orders to customers all around Switzerland. At the same time, our sales volume has reached roughly 2 million Swiss francs. On the impact side, our pricing does not follow speculative market rates. So instead, it is based on a bottom-up approach tailored to the needs of the producers. As a result, our operations enable more than 200 acres of regenerative farming in different areas of the world. So for example, we have products from Kerala, South India, from Sicily, from Andalusia, and also from Switzerland. Now that you know what we do, let's have a look at how such a purpose-driven project can be financed. It all started in 2015 with the pre-seed phase, when Toby and a handful of food enthusiasts founded an association and decided to import a container full of spices, rice, coconuts from southern India. In the middle, you can see Toby opening the very first container that arrived in Zurich. In order to finance their first import, they set up 5 crowdfunding campaigns on wemakeit.com in order to find out if there are enough people like them appreciating this one-of-a-kind product. All 5 crowdfunding campaigns were a huge success, but that success raised also a lot of questions. You might know about the pain of campaigning from people working at NGOs or in politics. It requires a lot of personal commitment. Networking, community building, storytelling, cold calls, emails, even standing on the street and selling your project in one-to-one talks. And it was clear that this effort could not be sustained for a long time based on volunteering only. The mission of CrowdContainer was just not made for a charity business model, let's say. In order to succeed, we would need to be able to attract strong people and pay their salaries. So when Toby and I started talking in 2017, it was clear that we would need to level up in various aspects in order to keep the idea of CrowdContainer alive. Here you see the outcome of these 5 crowdfunding campaigns. It resulted in a total revenue of 330k Swiss francs and a marginal return of 60,000 francs. So they actually managed to get 60,000 Swiss francs out of this operation to pay the fixed costs, let's say, to pay some expenses of the members of the association, and maybe also pay a small salary, but it wasn't enough for a living, obviously. Yeah, so the next phase, let's call it seed phase, because for us it was the seed case. We founded a stock corporation in addition to the existing association. A stock corporation took over all aspects of food trade, including sourcing, online sales, and fulfillment. We did that not only for operational reasons, but also because of the fact that in Switzerland, a stock corporation is basically a precondition for raising capital. The farmers from India were the first ones to support us by investing 50,000 Swiss francs. Based on this, we kept on leveraging our personal network and funded our own sales channel, crowdcontainer.ch, and built a core team of 3. In 2019, we almost ran out of money because the decision-making process of our most important institutional investor was delayed by health issues on his side. The one thing that kept us alive is also on this list, was the fact that we could rely on a highly negative cash-to-cash cycle while our sales volume kept growing substantially. Yeah. In 2020, the momentum once again changed. The pandemic boosted our sales while we leaped ahead of our original business plan. It was clear that the task of changing the food system remains way larger than the capabilities and even the lives of us founders. So we started looking for a way to fuel growth without compromising our long-term mission. And that's about where the concept of steward ownership came in. Every now and then since founding Crowd Container, we heard about this new concept, this new movement called steward ownership, or also purpose model. It was on top of our minds once we got to know Alexander Kühl, one of the founders of the German-based purpose movement. That was in 2019 when we first got in touch with him. The leading principles of self-governance and purpose-oriented profit allocation fit very well with our own understanding of doing business. Toby and I actually set up a founders agreement in 2017 that included the first principle, the principle of self-governance already, without knowing about the whole steward ownership concept. Yeah, while those principles sound good on the paper, they need to be implemented in a pragmatic and legally compliant manner. In Switzerland, we had a long way to go since there was no blueprint available. We got very lucky by meeting Ernst Schütz of the Purpose Foundation, which is based in Basel for the worldwide movement. That was really lucky. Ernst is a Swiss entrepreneur, a pioneer in the organic food industry, and the former owner of the German purpose company called Waschbär. He decided to invest in our company and helped us develop the legal framework. In short, the framework consisting of statutes and the shareholder agreement provides for self-governance, as the voting rights of the steward owners may only be transferred to their successors at nominal value. So there is no speculation with regards of the share price of the founders. Additionally, payout of dividends as well as the redemption value of company shares are strictly capped. As of spring last year, we were the first Swiss stock corporation to implement steward ownership. So I'll try to highlight some things. Yeah. There's an entity that holds the governing majority of the shares. It's a holding company where all the shares of the steward owners circulate at nominal value. So whenever there is a successor that joins our company and comes and takes on some responsibility, he will enter this purpose holding and get his shares at nominal value. Then there are the preferred shares of the investors. We sold them to investors who agree to the purpose terms. The purpose holding is allowed to buy those shares back within 10 years at the capped multiple of 3x. And last but not least, there is one golden share permanently held by the Purpose Foundation. And this golden share prevents us from changing our mind and selling to the company to the highest bidder. Yeah, obviously, choosing the purpose model of steward ownership costs quite some headache. experiencing the first one as I am talking here. I am pitching actually two ventures at the same time. While the purpose movement has matured in Germany, this is not the case for Switzerland. As a consequence, we usually spend half the time of our pitching sessions on our business model, on the business model of CrowdContainer. And once we convinced the investor of our business model, we spend the other half of the pitching session on the purpose principles. That's where the street credibility of EMS should also help us overcome a lot of these issues. And the second challenge was creating a legal framework after successfully completing the due diligence on our business model. Usually, once the due diligence comes to a conclusion, you're on the clock. You should really push for signing and closing, since every day that passes could put the whole deal at risk again. And since there was no blueprint available, we had to go back and forth over paragraphs for like 3 to 4 months until everything was ready for signing. And thanks to the huge commitment of the purpose community, we only lost 2 prospective investors during that time. Still, we lost them, but only 2. So it was not the whole deal was put at risk, but still, it's unfortunate. Yeah, to wrap the growth phase up, even though it was a lot of additional work involved on our side, the purpose model has proven to be a highly reliable way to finance our venture. We were able to match investors of the purpose community with more conventional, impact-driven business angels of our own network. And we could raise 1.2 million Swiss francs in total in that round. At the same time, we could also ramp up our business model and achieve a revenue of 5 million Swiss francs and still match the contribution of the investors with our operational marginal return of 1.4 million Swiss francs. Yeah, I was quick, wasn't I? Come to you, tell me. Yeah, so let's turn to the takeaways then, before we can answer your question. The first point is very specific for impact-driven projects, because if you're an ordinary startup, this question is already answered. You have to really look at your business model and decide who will primarily pay for the salaries of those who make your project happen. If you feel like, or if you see that customers and investors should pay your salaries, then you need a for-profit organization. If you can find supporters, including public institutions and foundations, you will need a not-for-profit organization for them to be able to give you money. And if you think you can tap all of them, you might want to go with a hybrid organization, but you have to be aware that the workload will multiply. There are a lot of examples doing that. Impact Hub Zurich, I know quite well, maybe Impact Hub Ticino. I don't know how it's working for you. CrowdContainer as well was for some time a hybrid organization, and actually still is, but we're trying to turn away from it just because it's really a lot of work nurturing both paths. The second point is more about me being a numbers guy, trusting in statistics. As an entrepreneur, you should constantly create opportunities for coincidence to happen. And that means mostly meeting different people and find the rare ones who really walk the talk. And the third point is also based on personal experience. In the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey, who is like 12 to 13 years away now, I really try to act as someone I thought I should be. As I am not talented enough, I failed at convincing people. So you really should find a role that fits your personality and talk about it with your co-founders so you can cover different aspects of your company. The third point is quite generic, let's say, because everybody knows that impact-driven people are great at explaining impact or how they can achieve impact. So you can make a big difference by mastering your financials. And the last one is like a general rule of thumb that you should keep in mind. If you can find a way to get paid before you have to pay your bills, you can significantly extend your runway without raising additional money. And yeah, I experienced like 3 to 4 times with different startups that we could survive a really harsh period without raising money, without being able to raise money maybe, and move on afterwards. Yeah, that's about it for now.
Thank you very much, Simon. I think you've raised a lot of interesting points. Maybe you can stop if you don't have any other slides,
Yeah.
so that we can see everybody. And yeah, the floor is open. So anybody who wants to ask a question, we have time.
Hey guys, I was looking for the hand to raise, but I wasn't able to find it. So here I am. Simon, thank you very much for your presentation. We have handled a lot. My name is Angelica, and I led the module on finance and go-to-market strategy for the incubator. And I really appreciate all the points you touched. I wanted to ask you if you could expand a little bit on what you said at the very last point, which is, of course, revenue is not cash flow, and we all know that, but the cash cycle, the negative cash to cash cycle. You touched on it briefly in talking about when you receive your order in terms of pre-orders and being paid before you actually give out the product. But if you could expand a little bit on that, I think it would be helpful for everybody. And thank you for the presentation.
Many thanks for your question. Yeah, usually if you look at your private household, let's say you get a bill and you pay it. As a business, you try to set up a service or a product, and usually you have to buy raw material, or in our case, we have to buy food and then put it in the shelf and sell it. And that means that in a usual model, we would have to pay the bill for the food maybe 1 month, maybe even 2 months before we get the revenue out of our sales. And by changing this whole model, by turning it upside down, by going down the road of the prepayment model, we have a negative cash-to-cash cycle of around 60 to 65 days, which means our customers lend us their money for roughly 2 months. So when sales start spinning up, that has a really positive effect on our cash balance. So let's say we can pay the salaries for like 3 to 4 months, depending on how the business goes, without relying on further revenue. Let's say if something really bad happens and yeah, like everything crashes down. I mean, yeah, you know, the lockdown, whatever comes our way, it's yeah, it can be really devastating for a business that has a positive cash-to-cash cycle, because, or even has a lot of products at stock. That could be really devastating. Yeah. So in our case, we tried to avoid stock, like having food in stock, because that would even make the whole cash cycle even more positive, or make more would make us even raise more money before being able to sell it and get it out of our customers.
Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. There's 2 questions on the chat. The first is from Marcus. What percentage of prepayment do you have on a single order? And the second one is on the structure, from Nando, on what is the structure of your holding company?
We have 100% prepayment on the order. So the reason why this is possible is because it's part of our storytelling. So it's not just a marketing thing, or trying to fool someone into the prepayment, but it's part of the whole business model. We, as Crowd Container, try to take the risk, the trading risk, away from the producers. And that is only possible if the consumers are involved by prepaying partly those goods. I mean, in Switzerland, there are some 7 to 9% of people who want to pay on a bill. Let's say they will not use credit cards or Twint or whatever direct payment solution you offer. They will insist on paying by a bill. And so, yeah, we have those 92 to 93% of our sales volume, which is prepaid by the time the customer puts an order in our system. Then we have like 7 to 8% of people who insist on getting a bill, where we have a negative cash cycle of only like 2 to 4 days, maybe. And the second question, sorry. Yeah.
The second one is from Nando on what is the structure of your holding company?
Yeah, okay, that goes with a third question I see, right?
Exactly.
Also from Nando. Okay, I might share the screen again, because then we can. The purpose holding is a limited liability company where the steward owners own 100% of the stakes. So whenever there is a new steward owner joining us, someone who takes up responsibility within Crowd Container, he or she will get a stake in this limited liability company at nominal value. Exactly. The limited liability company will also buy back the shares from the investors if everything works the way we planned within a time frame of 10 years, and can buy these shares by getting the money out of the stock corporation. So the stock corporation will lend out money to the limited liability holding for the limited liability holding to buy back the shares of the investors. So it's a quite simple structure, let's say, but yeah, it needed a lot of paperwork to make it fly. Does that answer your question, Nando? Do you?
I'll just unmute. Would you or would someone who has helped you be able and willing to help me set up this structure?
Sure, yeah, I can relate.
Okay, that's the primary question. Okay.
Sure, feel free to get back to me after this meeting the next few days. No problem. I can.
Okay, thank you.
Give you some context.
Thank you, Simon. Is there any other questions?
I have a question on the voting rights of your investors. Like, what is the difference between the shares you have, the steward-owned share and the investor share?
Right now, there is no difference. We still have the shareholder meeting once every year. And the investors have the same rights on voting on the issues as everyone else, except for the Purpose Foundation, who can veto on certain topics that relate directly to the purpose company.
Simon? Anybody else who wants to ask a question or share a personal experience as well on the issue of finding the right funding?
If no one else has a pressing question, I wanted to ask something that is very relevant to many people who are listening to your webinar today. And that is, you said that you were able to raise quite a lot of money, 1.2 million. So congratulations on that, of course. And that the investors agreed to accept a 3x return, capped at 3x on a certain amount of time. This requires quite a bit of negotiating skills and knowledge of the numbers, and also knowledge of the investors. Can you share with us what were the main challenges for the fundraising effort at that time? And you did mention that it was mostly explaining the structure, but also in terms of finding the right investors. I feel that is something that is very underestimated.
Yeah, first of all, as you said, it requires a lot of knowledge about the financials of the company itself, of the business model itself, because if you promise whatever X, you have to somehow come up with a reasoning for that. And the reasoning lies within the business model, within the figures that you make up for the whole presentation. So if you have like a net profit margin of 5% and you promise a 20x within 15 years, then that story will never fly. So you really have to understand your business model and your impact. On our side, it was very important that we could stand up also in front of, let's say, more conventional impact investors who told us, hey, why don't you go for a 10 or 20x? Why don't you use the information, the knowledge you have on the markets, on the supply chains, and pressure your sources and get out more than that 30% margin that you have on your products? You could do this because you have like a single access to those sources. And we really had to stand up and say, no, we use this knowledge in order to give value to these products, in order to be able to sell it at a higher price, because the whole story, the whole value of the product emerges with the story, with the transparency. And transparency is ruined once we use our knowledge in order to pressure our sources. Like, then the whole building collapses. There is no more trust from the side of our customers. It's just gone. Exactly. Okay. And then you asked about the strategies on how to find the right.
On how to target and reach the right investors.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
much time sometimes is wasted on the wrong people.
Yeah.
And if you have any suggestions on how to go about it in the most efficient way, I think it would be really helpful to most people listening today.
Well, we spent a lot of time pitching to investors, and I wouldn't say it was a waste of time. That I think everyone who is in the fundraising game knows that it's time consuming, and raising funds for a venture, for a young business usually takes from 12 to 18, maybe even 24 months. And yeah, it involved a lot of personal commitment from Tobias and me. I was lucky that it wasn't like the first venture I had to finance, so I knew where to connect and maybe find a shortcut. But in the end, finding those new sources and building up the trust with these new people, the whole purpose community was new to us. In the end, it took more than 18 months. Yeah, and it already had a story. I mean, we got to know the founder of one of the founder of the purpose movement in 2019 during our seed phase, and at that time, yeah, we were not ready to approach this network. So yeah, it was really about bringing together the right facts. I mean, there was a momentum where how the business went, a momentum how we defined our personal roles, like weaknesses, strengths, and bring this all together in a neat storyline that was at that time right for the purpose community. It wasn't right for more conventional impact investors who were really like, okay, I mean, the risk reward model, the risk reward ratio would not fit for them, and we wasted some time, even though I said it wasn't a waste because we learned a lot, but we spent a lot of time talking to conventional impact investors who, after like talking to us for 5 to 6 weeks and ensuring that they really understand our business model, and they know that our business model relies on trust of our community, of the customer, came back to us and says, okay, everything is fine now. We will give you 1.5 million Swiss francs, but we need 10 to 15x plus whatever. So that's just the way it goes. So yeah, I would suggest to get in touch with Purpose Switzerland, because they just founded like in November last year. So it's a young movement, but they have access to the purpose community itself, and they also can help you set up your case for the expectation of those people. And as I said in the key takeaways, you can really stand out if you know your financial model. That is something that pushes a lot of investors away, no matter if you're for profit or not for profit. Even foundations, if they realize that you do not know whether you will survive for 1 week or 6 months by the funds they will provide you with, it's gone.
Simon, thank you. There's another question from Manuela, asking what role and value does community have in your reality, and how do you nurture it?
That's a really good question. It's a huge part of the idea of a crowd container. We connect consumers directly with the producers. We have a lot of channels in place. It ranges from a WhatsApp channel where the community members, consumers, and producers chat together, exchange each other with regard to recipes, with regard to how to store a certain product, whatever. And then we have our social media channels where we really try to keep the community involved, but that's a really huge task. So we have to come up with a lot of original content that is made by us. So yeah, 2 of like 5 people, it's not even FTE. I mean, we are not at 5 FTEs now. It's 4.8, but 2 FTEs are just working on content, nurturing the community, including partly me and yeah, people sourcing the products.
We have time for one more question. Simon, I think I mean, the work that you're doing and also the model that you've established is quite, I mean, almost unique. You were the first one to establish this sort of model in Switzerland, steward ownership, and it's also a topic that we've talked about. We organized an event last year here at Impact Hub Ticino, and it seems like a very interesting model for some of the initiatives that we're working with. So I hope at some point we can also have you here in Ticino. Maybe we can organize an event in presence. And yeah, and I think, you know, if I'll give your email, or if you want to write your email on the side for participants, if they want to ask you direct questions on, you know, if you're able to provide some more details on how you went about, because these are issues that we've discussed within the incubator, and some teams have really thought about, especially the organizational you know, model, how to really set up an organization that protects the purpose as well.
Sure, I will gladly answer your question also in the next few days or months, or yeah, whenever you feel like you're ready, or you would like to have an information, just feel free to approach me.
Mm-hmm.
And Simon, many thanks for your openness and kindness in sharing your experience. But when will be the service of Crowd Container available in Ticino?
Look, the service is already available in Ticino. The problem is really just the language. I mean, yeah, we have to work with Google Translate. It's yeah, it's still, the site is still only available in German right now, but we work hard to bring it also in English, Italian, and maybe also French.
I'm an English native speaker, so if you need someone to proofread your English, I'll do it.
Great, many thanks.
Trade.
Thank you, Nando.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody, for being here tonight. Thank you, Simone, and thank you all of you for participating. I look forward to seeing all of you.
Thank you all of you for your contributions, for your questions. Many thanks. Have a great week.
Bye. Ciao, ciao, ciao. Grazie.
See you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Ciao, ciao.